Well, hello and welcome to the Khaki Campbell Developer series on Learn to Program ASP.NET using C#. This is lesson 1, the introduction you didn't want, but it's good for you anyway. Listen, if you're excited to learn about programming, I think I know what you're thinking right now. I don't want an introduction. These things are boring. They don't cover anything useful. They're worthless. These are the parts I always skip over. Man, this is just a waste of time. Why should I bother with this introduction? Well, hey, you know what? That's a fair question. Let's answer it. Introductions are actually good for you. They are. They're your first baby steps. You need to learn how to crawl before you can walk. A mentor of mine says, crawl, walk, run, win races. Well, this is the way that we need to start. We need to start by crawling. So I encourage you, don't be too anxious. Don't attempt to skip over to what you consider to be the good stuff. You need to learn how to crawl first. I understand that what we're covering right now may not seem very important at first. At first it won't seem that important, but I promise you down the road, if these are things that you've skipped over, it will hurt you in your programming career. I tell you, I've been in this racket for 15 years. I know the people who skipped over their introductions. They are easy to spot and to pick out. I catch them out in interviews all the time. And so I encourage you not to be someone like that. I encourage you, spend the time, go through the introduction, and the first couple of videos really are all introductions, but I encourage you to do it and to soak up the information that you need, because it's going to become important. Something my mom always told me was that I need to master the basics before I try to master the rest of it. I tell you, 15 years later, Mama was right. Master the basics before you move on. They're important. They really are. Okay, so who am I? What makes me qualified to teach this? Well, I'm a self-taught developer. What I mean by that is, in college, I went and majored in philosophy. Well, what do you do with a philosophy degree? Well, as I quickly found out, nothing. I graduated I finished up in 97. I think it was late 95, I realized that philosophy majors have a 66% unemployment rate in their field. And so my philosophy major was quickly going to become nothing. Well, about the same time, my dad gave me a copy of Microsoft Word 2, and I was using it, and I actually liked the program, but then I got really arrogant, and I thought, hey, you know what? I'll bet I could program better than this. And so what I did was I picked up a book on Introduction to Programming using C. I picked up a Borland compiler on my student discount, and I sat down to figure that stuff out. And a year later, someone took a chance on me, took a chance in hiring me, and it was a fish to water. I found out that my philosophy degree wound up actually being a pretty good degree to have as a programmer, because many of the things I did as a philosophy major actually translated very, very well into developing code. It's abstract reasoning. It is really just kind of solving problems through a precise series of instructions. Well, I've been gainfully employed as a developer now for 15 years. I have worked in a variety of settings. I've done both commercial and DoD. I have, at this point, quite a bit of experience, and now my passion is to give that knowledge to other people, to begin developing the next generation of developers. What else? Well, I currently own 13 Khaki Campbell ducks, thus the Khaki Campbell Developer. People always ask me, why do you own Khaki Campbell ducks? Well, because I didn't want chickens. That's why. We have them for their eggs. We don't eat our ducks. We just can't bring ourselves to it. We make the huge mistake of naming our ducks, and once you name them, you can't eat them. But we do get eggs out of them. Khaki Campbells are the most prolific egg layers out there. Oh, by the way, we also own, my wife and I, 12 guinea fowl. If you are not familiar with guinea fowl, I encourage you, Google this. Google this bird. First thing you're going to notice is that it is a fugly bird. I mean ugly. However, they are the most useful bird you're ever going to meet. Each one will eat 1,000 ticks a day if they can find it. We are supposed to, this year, 2012, supposed to have a massive tick problem, and that's what most people are telling us. Not in our yard, baby. Not in our neighbor's yard either. These birds actually do clean up those ticks. They also attack snakes and kill them on sight. They are also kind of like watchbirds. If anything is going wrong in the yard, or they think anything's going wrong in the yard, they make a racket, and so they let you know something's wrong. Now, of course, that racket piece, you need understanding neighbors to own guinea fowl. Fortunately, we do, and we're hoping someday to move to a little bit of land. So anyway, that's a little bit about me, who I am, and why I think I'm qualified to teach this, because I've been in the trenches for 15 years. I have interviewed a lot of developers. I've mentored a lot of developers. I've been in a wide variety of situations. And plus, I'm not unwilling to step out and to do things that, most people wouldn't do, like own all sorts of birds. Okay, what's going to be the focus of this particular series? Well, the focus is going to be on business applications, not games, not artificial intelligence or anything like that, business apps. How come? Why am I going to do it that way? Well, because business apps are where the vast majority of developers are going to work. Out of 100 of you watching this series who complete it, 99 of you will be tasked to develop business apps. Not games, not artificial intelligence, business applications. Why? Well, because video games are hard to program. They are really, really difficult to program. I've tried it multiple times, and I can understand the basics of it, but to actually pull it together to pull off a game, I can't do it. And most of the people that I've met who are very, very good developers struggle in the video game world. Those guys, they're an entity unto themselves. And if you want to get really hard, you want to go develop the next HAL 2000 with artificial intelligence, I promise you, that's even harder. So most people who go through the process of learning how to develop are going to be developing business applications. Well, the nice thing about that is permanence. There's always, always a need for business application developers. Much better in terms of being hired, much better in being able to keep your job. Business apps is where it's at. Business is not going away. Okay, so quick introduction. What are we going to look at today? Well, first, why should I learn how to program? You may be on the fence right now. You're not sure if you want to program. Okay, let's address that. Second, why should I learn how to program using .NET as opposed to, say, Java or PHP? Why should I learn how to program in C# as opposed to some of the other .NET languages like VB, F#, or even C++? By the way, that C#, that's pronounced C#. Not sure why they did it that way. They just did, because I thought that was actually, no, it's not. Never mind. What is Visual Studio Express? Okay, what is Visual Studio, the compiler that Microsoft provides, and then what is the Express version? And then finally, what is TechNet? The good stuff. So let's walk through those real quick. Why should I learn how to program? Because, hey, Tony, this looks hard. Well, you're right. It is uber left brain work. And some people get scared by that. Some people say, oh, but I'm a right brain person. I'm kind of the artistic type of person. Well, okay. There are plenty of right brain people. But this is kind of left brain work. Let me liken it to macaroni and cheese if I could. If you had to tell someone how to create or how to make a box of macaroni and cheese, could you do it? Could you write it down as a set of instructions or as a recipe? You probably could. And I'm not talking about anything fancy. I'm not talking about the Velveeta variety or anything like that. I'm just talking about a good old box of macaroni and cheese. Boil it, a little butter, a little milk, the sauce mix, throw it all together, and good to go. Could you do it? I'll bet you could. But here's what you're going to do. You're going to be a little right-brained about it. You're going to say something like, grab a medium saucepan, fill it about halfway with water, bring it to a boil the noodles until they're done, right? You're going to say something like that. Well, that's a little too unspecific for a computer to be able to handle. When you say a medium saucepan, unless you've predefined what a medium saucepan is, a computer can't handle it. So if instead you say, get the silver pot with the black handle, well, a computer can handle that. That's specific. Fill it about halfway with water, computer can't handle that unless it knows what the volume is, so it can calculate half. But if you say, instead, put 3 cups of water in, well, a computer can handle that. And instead of saying cook it until it's done, you're going to have to say bring it to a boil and then cook it for X number of minutes. What, 3, 4, 5 minutes? I don't remember. So as long as you can handle that level of specificity, that level of being specific, you probably already have what it takes to be a developer. Because in the end, writing code is nothing more than writing a series of instructions. It has to be a little more specific, it has to be a little bit more ordered, but in the end, it's just like writing recipes. All software development is all software programs are simply a series of instructions to the computer. That's it. Let me give you 3 more reasons why I think you should learn how to program. Recession? There is no recession for IT right now. About 3 months ago, I put my resume out there to switch jobs. I was a little tired of my commute, and I wanted to see if I could find something closer in. I had recruiters bombarding me with phone calls. 6 to 7 a day was not unusual. Did you catch that? Not me applying to them. I simply made my resume available on Dice.com. They found me. They were recruiting me. In fact, it's 3 months later, and someone was following up. Two people have followed up to see if I actually liked the job I currently was at. That's how desperate they are for good developers. So recession? There is no recession if you're in IT. Not right now. Another reason, it's just a great career field. Let me tell you something. Developers tend to get treated pretty well. People understand that developers are tough to find right now, and so they get treated well. And I've been in this for 15 years. I got to tell you, it's been a good career field. You tend to work with good people. The whole stereotype of programmers being people down in the basement, throwing some Doritos and they'll write you some code, those days are long gone. It is a professional field now, and it is good. It is a very good field. For some people who are non-programmers, might be IT managers, they might be responsible for managing programmers. I encourage you, learn how to program just a little bit, go through an introductory thing. And the reason for it is that most IT software development projects tend to run over budget and run late. You need to know why. It helps you to know why, and it especially helps you to know so that you can manage those projects and hopefully be able to bring them in on budget, on time. Most managers just don't understand how software is developed, and as such, they try and manage it using techniques that simply don't work in software development. If you know how software development works, then you'll be able to understand whether or not the management technique you're using is actually hurting your team. So those are the reasons I think you should learn how to program. Again, I think it's a great career field, especially in this economy. It is a fantastic career field to be in. Okay, why should I learn to program .NET? Here I'm going to compare it to Java. Java is the main competitor out there. Java and .NET are the two 800-pound gorillas in the development field right now. And I believe that really the question is one of specialization. The decision here is whether or not you're going to specialize in Microsoft technologies. The non-Microsoft world offers many excellent opportunities. The Microsoft world is focused on business applications, and it is hardly perfect. .NET is hardly perfect, but there will always be a need for business applications, and Microsoft Technologies developing on a Microsoft platform is a great place to be. I believe it outweighs Java, but let me say this. I have a lot of respect for Java. I think it is a great platform. I really do. There are some things that they implement that I wish got implemented in .NET. I think .NET has better tools. They're just better tools for development. You don't need to know everything before you can do anything. You can begin with baby steps. You can crawl, walk, run, and then win races. I found that with Java, there was a lot you needed to know to get going. Beyond writing some simple command line applications, I found it to be very, very confusing. And so, I mean, certainly I could push through and learn it all, but I found .NET to be just a little bit easier. Additionally, there's better support. The training and support that Microsoft offers is simply outstanding. Microsoft does a lot to develop or to support Microsoft developers. They put a lot of money into helping them, and plus there are a lot of third-party tools that make this stuff even better. Now, for all of that, for all of these reasons, I think it's a great place to be with .NET, but I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid, if you would. I believe that when you get into a Microsoft specialization and you focus on Microsoft, you tend to get a little pigeonholed. It's easy to lose sight of what the non-Microsoft world is doing. Many Microsoft quote-unquote innovations are really just copies of what has been developed in other technologies. And I'm thinking here especially of Objective-C, the language being used by Apple. That is an amazing language, and they have developed some great stuff. Java, in many respects, .NET is a big copy of Java. It's taking the best of Java, the best of the original VB, Visual Basic language, and it's kind of putting it all together into .NET. And so often you'll see that Microsoft is rolling out new technologies that they're saying this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. But if you know the other languages, you realize someone else actually developed the idea. Microsoft is simply incorporating it into .NET. Now, please don't drink the Java Kool-Aid that says, oh, Microsoft is simply stealing. This is just the nature of competitive business. When someone comes up with a good idea, everybody begins to copy it. That's just Business 101. Okay, so why should I learn to program .NET using C# instead of another .NET language? Well, .NET is implemented by multiple languages, and I have here Visual Basic, F#, C++. Actually, there is over 60 languages that implement the .NET platform. So why should I learn C# instead of another .NET language? And I know F# has been getting a lot of attention lately. Well, Let me give you a couple reasons. One, education and training. All .NET training and education is done in C Sharp. If you know if you say you know .NET, you simply have to know C Sharp. I got to tell you, I've done a lot of hiring and interviewing of developers, and if I had a resume slid across my desk to possibly interview someone who says they know .NET but doesn't know C Sharp, they're not getting the interview. It's just that simple. If you don't know what C Sharp is and how to use it and be proficient in it, you're not a .NET developer, period. All education and training is done in C Sharp, so if you don't know it, you don't know .NET. C Sharp fully implements, or rather fully supports, the .NET framework. In other words, F Sharp only implements part of the .NET framework. Visual Basic, I believe, implements now all of it, and C++ does, but C Sharp was really written around the .NET platform, and so it fully implements that platform. It's here to stay. Plus, it's a whole lot easier to understand Java if you know C Sharp and vice versa. So C Sharp was actually designed to bring over Java developers into the .NET platform. So it becomes very easy to move between those two languages if you know C Sharp. Finally, want a job? Like I just said, if you say you're a .NET programmer but don't know C Sharp, you're not getting the job. It's just that simple. You do need to know C Sharp. This is where the industry is right now. Okay, so let's talk about Visual Studio. You think this guy's excited? I think he's very excited. He's very excited about Visual Studio. The first thing I want you to know about Visual Studio is IntelliSense. IntelliSense. Now, you might think this isn't very important, but I got to tell you, IntelliSense in Visual Studio rocks. Let me switch over to Visual Studio. What I've got here is a project that I've been working on. This is just a simple little page. And what I'd like to show you is this. I've instantiated, I've instantiated an object called repos. Let me show you. Repos dot. Did you see how this is happening as fast as I can type? It's finding it for me, finding the various objects available to me. I just hit enter, it finishes, dot, and look how fast that popped up. I want get all projects. I just hit enter. That's it. And then if I hit my parentheses, it would have given me all the parameters. It gives me the information. What can I do right now? And it's fast. I've used other compilers, and I got to tell you, their IntelliSense is extremely, extremely slow, painful to use. This is simply fast, and what it does, it makes me a better developer because I don't have to memorize everything. I know that this object roughly implements these kind of methods, so I can actually instantiate, I can create that object, and I can just go using IntelliSense. IntelliSense tells me what I can do, and it makes me a better developer. I don't know of any developer who sits there and memorizes everything in programming. They don't. We all rely on IntelliSense. IntelliSense makes us a better programmer. The next reason why you want to like Visual Studio and get happy like this guy is because of the issue of debugging. Visual Studio offers some amazing debugging. Here I've already started my program. What debugging allows me to do is to stop the program, get a snapshot of the program, and then sort of see what's going on within the program. It allows me to know everything that's going on at the moment, at that particular moment where I stopped it, and I've got powerful, powerful debugging tools. So that's why we want to get excited about Visual Studio. Another reason why we want to get excited about Visual Studio. Automation is another reason. There's a lot of really repetitive tasks that you've got to do over and over and over again. Visual Studio will automate it behind the scenes, so you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to sit there and write this really repetitive code over and over and over. Instead, what you can do is you can focus in on what your code is supposed to do, issuing the correct instructions. Microsoft developers. Did you know that Microsoft uses Visual Studio to develop their own software? No kidding. I'm not kidding. They created their own compiler so that they could make their own software. So Microsoft developers themselves use this product. In other words, Microsoft is eating their own dog food. Now, I'm not going to drink the Kool-Aid here. Visual Studio and the way Microsoft encourages people to develop, generally very good. However, there are some shortcuts that you'll want to be careful about, especially when it comes to data access. They will provide some shortcuts that, as a new developer, look great. But I got to tell you, you put them in a production system, bad idea. If what you're doing is you're building something quick and dirty and it's not going to change too much, great, go ahead and use all the shortcuts. It's fine, just get it done. However, when you're developing an application whose requirements are likely to change over time, these shortcuts will destroy you. They really will. Or rather, when you have to go back and rework that application to fit the new requirements, those shortcuts, all of a sudden, they saved you no time because you're going to spend a lot of time backing it all out and doing it correctly. So you want to know these shortcuts and what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are. As we go through the series, we're going to look at some of these shortcuts that you want to stay away from, or at least you want to be very careful about. Well, I don't know if you've ever priced Visual Studio, but it is painfully expensive. Painfully. So what Microsoft did was they offer the Express version of their compilers, Visual Studio Express, and this thing is a free download. You can go do a quick Google search for Visual Studio Express download, and you will find it. It's free. It is an unlimited license. You can keep it for as long as you want. I should probably say, oh, by the way, it's free. I think I've already said that. It's free, it's free, it's free. And it's a great compiler. You get the full debugger, full IntelliSense, everything. It's pretty straightforward to install also. You just download the installer, boom, it's installed, no big deal. There are several versions out there. There's like Visual C#, there's Visual F#, Visual C++, there's Visual Installer. The one you want is this one, Visual Web Developer. For what we're going to be doing here, Visual Web Developer will give you what you need. While you're there, you'll also see SQL Server Express. 2008 or 2012, I'm not sure which is out there right now. But get that while you're at it. All major websites are data-driven at this point, meaning there's a database support, or at least one database supporting them. You want this database because interacting with the database to be able to present information to the screen cleanly is a critical part of what you'll be doing as an ASP.NET developer. There are limitations to the Express version. For SQL Server Express, it can only handle, I think, 2 or 3 concurrent connections at a time, which means you cannot use this database to host a production application. It won't work. Additionally, the Express versions of the compiler, Visual Web Developer, you can only have one installed on your computer at any one time. So if down the road you want to uninstall or you want to install Visual Studio C# Express, you need to remove Visual Web Developer Express before you can install the other one. It's just one of the limitations of it. Additionally, you can't have multiple projects in a solution. We'll get to what that means later, but that is a pretty serious limitation. The Express version is meant for students and hobbyists. It is not meant for series production. It is not meant for real-world development stuff. Now, if you go down this road a little bit and you decide, hey, I like this, I'm getting excited, I want to know more, or I want better tools, well, let me introduce you to Microsoft TechNet. This is where you go to get the good stuff. I've put here a quick screenshot on their website. And I want you to see that little box right there. You can get, through your TechNet subscription, you can get evaluation copies of almost all Microsoft software. You can get evaluation copies of almost all Microsoft software. You can't use it in production, okay? Even though you can get Exchange Server, you can't host it. And you get a 1-year license on it because that's your 1-year TechNet subscription. If you want to find this, you can go to http://technet.microsoft.com, or you can simply do a search for Microsoft TechNet. It costs about $200 as a price of entry. Now, if you get down this road a little bit and you start getting excited and you want to know more and more and more, I believe it's a worthwhile investment. What this will do is it'll give you a copy of Visual Studio Pro, which is sort of the entry level for genuine development. And it allows you to start looking at some of the software. Now, you're not actually allowed to use Visual Studio Pro from your TechNet subscription to develop software for production. You can't do that. However, for learning, it's fine because you're evaluating the software. So TechNet is where you want to go to get the good stuff, everything with Microsoft. Now, I'm a firm believer, get the free stuff, use the free stuff as much as you can, and don't pay for anything until you need to pay for it. I would not sink the money into this until you know this is what you want to do. For me, I do have a copy of a subscription to TechNet. I think it's absolutely worth the time for my situation because on my box I put a virtual machine that has SharePoint, and it's allowed me to do a lot of SharePoint training on my particular box. Training in terms of development training, not just how to use SharePoint. Well worth the money. The $200, well worth it. Well worth it. Okay, so what did we cover? Well, we took a look at why you should learn how to program. It's a great career field. There's no recession, and even for people who have no intention of being a programmer, it still helps you to manage development projects. We saw that .NET is Microsoft's platform for all development at this point. They have bet their company on .NET. C# we learned was the preferred language in using .NET, and we learned about Visual Studio Express, the free compiler, and then if you want more than that, how to get it at TechNet. So, I hope you've enjoyed this. Look for the rest of the series. I will be posting them both on my blog as well as on YouTube. Thank you.